with Michael DePasquale. You know, he's telling me some really interesting things about years ago with a magazine he had when he reffed, commentating with the beginnings of the UFC. Tell us a little bit about that, Mike.
Oh, interesting stories. I was judging in the early days of the UFC, and I was commentating at the same time. I owned a magazine called Karate International. It was the first magazine that actually covered the UFC. I did some feature stories on it. And I also had the first martial art internet site in the world. It was called Martial Art Worldwide Network with my partner, America Online. And at that time, the technology wasn't there. So what I did was I used to have a chat section, and I had a specific UFC section on my internet site. And we did chats with Coleman, all these guys that were in the early days. Don Fry was one of the first ones, Tank Abbott. I've got Gracie, I've got all these chats. We would sit them down, and the people at home would ask questions to the guys that were fighting. And I'd bring them over to the octagon. This is before I would commentate and before I would judge. We would have them come over right before the fight would really start.
That sounds like a show that should still be happening.
And I still have the original chats.
Oh, that's great.
I have them all on paper from AOL when I made sure I printed it. But it was interesting because it was the start of something big, and people don't recognize it. Pretty much anything went back then. And I was involved from the very beginning with that. I judged Randy Couture, Belfort's first fight in Mississippi, Biloxi, Mississippi, when Randy Couture first fought. And I know Belfort was a young 19-year-old, and he already fought. He was an unbelievable animal, and no one thought he was going to get beat, and Randy Couture beat him, as you very well know. Right. But I mean, all these guys, Tito Ortiz, all these guys judged all of these guys in the early days. Some of them for the first time, Miletich fight, all these guys, and it was a blast. I'll tell you a really interesting story. I was in Buffalo, New York, and I'm in my room. I just get to my room, and I get a phone call. Mike, we got to take a plane down to Alabama, I do believe. They just banned the UFC in New York State. So what do we do? Morowitz, who at the time owned Semaphore Entertainment, he was there, and it was disappointing, but he could not cancel a pay-per-view. So he shoved all of us on a plane, and we flew down to Alabama, and it was like 4 in the morning. We get off the plane. The only airport was about, I'd say, 50 miles away from where they were going to have this thing. So we all had to get on buses and go to the hotel. We get to our hotel, and our clothes are not there. They put the octagon underneath the plane, and our clothes came later on because they had no room. So these are the kind of stories. And then I ended up having to go. I didn't even get any sleep.
So you did the show naked?
Yeah, naked just about.
So how did you wind up working with Lou?
You know what? It's kind of funny. Lou Neglia and I go way, way, way back. When I think it was Avenue U, Lou used to run kickboxing.
That's right.
Tournaments, I think at the Italian American Club or whatever. I used to help Lou promote them in my magazine, and when he had Coors, I put in the back of my magazine Karate International when I first started in '89. I had 2 other magazines, Combat Karate and Ninja the Deadly Warrior with Warner. When I started this, I became very close to Lou, and I would go ringside to every one of his fights and help him promote. And I never forgot it because Lou would send me these pictures with girls in gis with no bra underneath. Lou, sorry, but it doesn't mean they were covered, but you see they had enough. And I'm saying, Lou, come on. But we used the pictures, and it was kind of funny. But then I got involved with Lou because I'm on the athletic commission. I've been on the athletic commission with Nick Limbo. I just got inducted into the New Jersey State Martial Art Hall of Fame with the athletic commission about December, the second time they did it with Donald Trump, because Donald Trump did the first UFC here, which I judged. Another real interesting story, I think it was in Denver, Colorado, when Coleman's first fight. I'm not sure exactly where, but I remember sitting in the diner at the counter, and I'm looking at him, and I'm good friends with Coleman. I had him at my martial art university along with Mark Kerr. At the time, both of them were animals, and they still are. But I said, "Are you fighting this?" Looks at me and says, "Yeah." And I looked at him, I said, "This guy, he was a national collegiate wrestling champion. I knew this guy, and he went on to be, one of the guys that everybody wanted to beat but couldn't beat."
Thank you for your time. Michael DePasquale.
My pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure.
We'll see you tomorrow at Alan Goldberg.
I'm emceeing Alan Goldberg every year for 12 years. I've been emceeing it. It's one of my job, and I love Alan. He's a great man, my brother.
Thank you, Michael.
God bless.
Thank you.